Representative WEPRIN. I'm joined from Queens. I'm joined by State Senator Eric Adams from Brooklyn. We also have John Raskin, who's Chief of Staff to Senator Dan Squadron from Manhattan. We have Leslie Grubler, who heads up a coalition of various providers and advocates in the early intervention area. We're here, the budget is about to be finalized. There is negotiation happening this afternoon between the governor, the Speaker of the Assembly, Sheldon Silver, and the State Senate Majority Leader, Dean Skelos, today. The Assembly version of the budget that was passed 2 weeks ago included a full restoration to the early intervention. Unfortunately, the Senate version did not include that. It might have if it was a Democratic-controlled Senate last year when Eric Adams was in the majority. But we're still optimistic, and I know Senator Skelos is very sympathetic to the issue as well. Many of the advocates have reached out to him, and we're optimistic that as a result of some of the restorations that are going to be made in the next day or two, that this will be included. However, if for some reason it's not fully included or fully restored, I do have a bill in Albany. There are copies of the bill, which would basically provide a total restoration, not just including the cuts from this time, but the mid-year cuts that were done by the Commissioner of Health last April. And let me just explain the basics here, and we'll hear from the advocates and the experts who can really give you some of the importance of this program. But we are dealing here with probably our most vulnerable population in New York State, and that is infants to 3-year-olds with developmental disabilities or potential developmental disabilities, where early intervention makes a huge difference in the outcome in these children's lives. And it affects, as you can imagine, not only the children, but the parents, the grandparents, the siblings, the extended community. So it's so important that these very vulnerable infants and children, young children, get the proper therapy and diagnosis early on and treatment as a result of this early intervention, as EI is referred to, early intervention of diagnosis, therapy, and treatment for this very vulnerable population. So, you know, if I can't think of a more worthy restoration. We're not talking about a lot of money in a over $130 billion budget. The recent cuts are probably in the $20 million range. The prior cuts are probably similar, but it's really, it's not a question of money. It's a question of how do we find the money, because this is such an important function. Let me call upon my colleague in the legislature, in the State Senate from Brooklyn, Senator Eric Adams.
Thank you. Thank you, Assemblyman WEPRIN. And I really want to thank the families, the advocates, the parents that are behind us. This is an important issue, and early intervention is everything. In itself, early intervention means prevention. And we cannot deny our young people today in hopes of dealing with these issues tomorrow. Something is wrong with a society that everything that seems normal has become abnormal, and those things that are abnormal has become normal. It is abnormal to take away cuts from early intervention but refuse to pass a millionaire's tax. Yes. What is wrong with that? You know, to have major property owners from the New York Yankees, etc., who are paying zero taxes. Major corporations are refusing to pay their share of taxes. Millionaires don't want to pay their fair share of taxes. Yet we're going to go to the most vulnerable among us and take away from them. That's wrong. Early intervention, our young children, did not cause the crash on Wall Street. They did not overinflate homes throughout the country. They did not have wasteful spending and get us involved in wars. They did nothing to cause the financial troubles that we are going through. Since they did nothing to cause it, they should not be the group that's impacted by how we did it. slogan must change from helping Wall Street and Main Street, because we're turning our back on Main Street, and Main Street are our children. I believe, and I'm sure the Assemblyman shares my belief, the two most important areas of our society are our seniors with senior care and ensuring in their golden years they have the necessary items that's needed in their golden years of life. The second are our children, and those children who have some important needs. Those two ends of the spectrum must receive the needed financial resources. Before we do anything in government, we should take care of those two areas of society, and then we deal with the middle. The last on the list are those who are making millions of dollars. Those are the last on the list. They have enough. Their discretionary spending of jet fuel and tax breaks should not go at the expense of our young people. We must restore this money. Early intervention is important. It is not a requirement. It's a necessity. It's a need. Thank you.
Senator Adams. I'm now going to call upon Leslie Grubler, who's put together a coalition of advocates and providers to make sure that we really maintain this such crucial early intervention program.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Thank you, our legislators, for coming out today. And special thanks to Assemblyman WEPRIN, whose drive and tenacity brought us here and has brought us all the way here and will continue. We are so grateful for his support throughout this process. You know, when I think back to April of 2010, when this profound process began to affect us, I kept saying to myself, this makes no sense. This makes no sense. How could we be taking services away from our children with developmental disabilities? How could we be doing this? And so I struggled for a week or two, and I said we had to do something. We had to come together. And what you see behind me is what the result is. We are 1,500 strong right now, and there's another 400 waiting to be added to our group, and that is throughout New York State.
Hi, Dennis Galtz. I'm a special educator. I've been teaching 19 years now, and early intervention saves lives. I see it every day. The children, the babies who get early intervention early on come into the public schools with skills and abilities and communication skills that children do not get without EI. So EI providers save lives, and I think Albany needs to do right by these babies. They need to fund it properly and stop giving tax cuts to millionaires. Give your name.
Leah Esther Lax. I am a parent member on the State Early Intervention Coordinating Council, whose role is to advise and assist the Department of Health. And the reason I became involved in this program is because my child was born with a host of issues, and I was told he would be in special education his entire life. He received very extensive assistance from the early intervention program and from the preschool special education program. And as he got into school age, the amount expended upon him by the taxpayers of our state was less than 10% of what had been predicted without the assistance he received from early intervention. This then motivated me to go back to school and study developmental neuroscience. And I learned that the gains that children are capable of making in their earliest years are unparalleled in their development because their brain is still forming and still developing. When we take that away from babies, we take away the promise, not only to the children, but to all the families, because babies are not out here alone. Babies are parts of families, and when we save a child, we save an entire family. And for fiscal responsibility, it is my sincere belief that this program is the most fiscally responsible program that this government operates.
Yes, first of all, this is my son, and I am Naftali Fogel. I am a PT and a parent. As a PT, as a physical therapist, I've seen very many times, but specifically I just want to bring out one case. I'm working with a child with spina bifida, which means that the child's nerves do not work. They had problems with the spinal cord. The child was slated for wheelchairs, which would have cost the city and the state hundreds of thousands of dollars over the child's lifetime. The child has received EI. Besides for the fact that the child wasn't talking, the child is now walking independently, working together with a simple little splint, and is slated to be able to remove that splint because of EI therapy. If not for the EI therapy, which may have cost them a few tens of thousands of dollars, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars that would have been cost in state-funded money, and it's just not going to help them. Besides for the funding, it's going to chop off the legs of our children. Our children are not going to be able to walk. So it depends. We can either just spend the money. You don't see any wheelchair vendors here. You know why? Because they're applauding this. This is great. You cut therapy, they're all being wheelchairs. So you have a choice. You can either spend it on EI and save our children and let them walk, or you'll spend it on wheelchairs, and it's going to be much worse that way.
So you testified in Albany?
I testified in Albany at the LEICC meeting 2 weeks ago, especially responding to the 15-minute increment billing that they're trying to do, which significantly affects New York City therapists instead of the rest of the state. Because currently in New York City, the therapists are approved for 30-minute sessions, where the rest of the state it's 45-minute sessions. They're taking that 45-minute rate and calculating down to a 30-minute session. So a therapist, an agency now, instead of being reimbursed $81, will be reimbursed $54. Then if you take the 10% rate cut, it comes down to $49. And then, so you're expecting therapists to be working now for $30 a half hour instead of $60 a half hour. They're not going to do it. So the end result for this is that you're going to have no therapists willing to give therapy for children because they can't afford to live. They're all going to go to CPSC and CSC where the rate is better and the paperwork is significantly less. And who's going to suffer? It's our children who are going to suffer, because by the time they get up to CSC and CPSC, they're not going to be able to make the progress that they make, that they can get, getting their early intervention therapy.